Red Bull Racing has issued an official apology to Andrea Kimi Antonelli after the Mercedes rookie became the target of intense online abuse following the Qatar Grand Prix. The controversy highlights not only the heat of the 2025 championship fight but also the dangerous chain reaction that can occur when influential figures make premature accusations. In the closing laps at Losail, Antonelli was running fourth while keeping Lando Norris behind him. In the context of the tight Verstappen-Norris title battle, that position mattered. Had the finishing order stayed as it was, Max Verstappen would have closed the championship gap to 10 points instead of the current 12. But on the final lap, Antonelli made an error exiting turn 10, allowing Norris to slip through. That mistake became the spark for a much larger incident. Immediately after the race, Helmut Marko and Verstappen's race engineer, Gianpiero Lambiase, insinuated that Antonelli had let himself be passed to help Norris, a claim that turned out to be baseless. The comments fueled outrage among sections of Verstappen's fanbase, who quickly flooded the 19-year-old's social media with insults, accusations, and personal attacks. Faced with the backlash, Red Bull released an official statement. Comments made before and immediately after the Qatar GP suggesting that Mercedes driver Andrea Kimi Antonelli deliberately allowed Lando Norris to overtake him are clearly incorrect. They reaffirmed what replay footage had shown. Replays demonstrate that Antonelli briefly lost control of his car, which allowed Norris to pass him. We deeply regret that this has led to Kimi being subjected to online abuse. Helmut Marko also issued a rare personal apology, telling Insider F1. "I have watched the footage again. The first time, Antonelli should have defended better, when Oscar Piastri passed him in turn 1. The second time, it was a driving error and unintentional. I am sorry that Antonelli has received so much criticism on the internet." A critical look at the situation reveals several key points. First, the incident shows how powerful the influence of high-profile figures in Formula One can be. When Marko and Lambiase expressed suspicion without solid evidence, many fans interpreted it as validation to attack a young driver who was simply doing his job. Second, the intensity of the 2025 title fight amplified the reaction. Antonelli, who was not involved in the championship battle, became collateral damage simply because his late race error indirectly affected the points gap between Verstappen and Norris. Third, this is a symptom of modern F1 culture. Social media has rapidly escalated normal racing incidents into tribal warfare. Every mistake, especially from a rookie, becomes fuel for toxic narratives once fans feel legitimized by a comment from inside the paddock. Fourth, while Red Bull's apology matters, it also exposes a deeper issue. Their statement arrived after the abuse had erupted. It raises the broader question of whether teams and senior figures in F1 should act more responsibly and cautiously before making speculative comments that can inflame fan behavior. Ultimately, Antonelli made a simple error, the kind that any driver, especially a 19-year-old rookie, can make. There is no evidence whatsoever that he intentionally let Norris through. Marko's revised position confirms that. Red Bull has apologized. Marko has walked back his comments. But the episode leaves behind uncomfortable questions. How much damage has already been done? And will this incident push F1 toward a healthier culture, or simply mark another chapter in a growing pattern of on? The Antonelli controversy is more than a simple misinterpretation of a final lap mistake. It reveals structural tensions inside Formula One, the pressure on young drivers, the narrative battles between top teams, and the ecosystem of hyperreactive fandom shaped by social media. When examined closely, the incident becomes a case study in how modern F1's competitive environment can unintentionally create collateral damage. The first issue is the role of narrative framing in competitive politics. In a championship as tight as 2025, every incident is immediately framed through the lens of title implications. When Max Verstappen's camp suggested Antonelli might have helped Norris, it fed into an already pre-existing storyline pushed by parts of the paddock and fanbase, that McLaren and Mercedes may indirectly work together when their interests align. This narrative, though largely speculative, has emotional power. It influences interpretation more than data. When Marko and Lambiase voiced their suspicions, even subtly, they essentially validated this narrative before checking the footage. Their words acted as fuel in a media environment primed to jump on controversy. Second, the incident highlights how unforgiving F1 has become for rookies. Antonelli is a 19-year-old in his first season, thrown into a car that is inconsistent and facing some of the strongest grids in years. Yet the expectations placed on him resemble those given to experienced drivers. The slightest mistake, especially one with championship implications, becomes magnified far beyond its true significance. Worse, the online environment treats rookies not as developing athletes but as characters in a drama whose value is judged through the lens of fan loyalty. The abuse Antonelli faced reflects a culture where tribalism overrides empathy, and drivers are dehumanized into mere symbols of team identity. Third, the episode raises a question of institutional responsibility within F1. Teams know the influence their staff hold. Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren each maintain massive global fan bases, many of whom react emotionally rather than analytically. In such a context, even a single speculative comment can activate thousands of fans. Marco's apology is notable, but it also implicitly acknowledges that his earlier remarks carried unintended consequences. This places a spotlight on an evolving expectation that team leaders must adopt a degree of restraint, not out of political correctness, but because their platforms are powerful enough to cause real harm. Fourth, the situation underscores how quickly misinformation spreads compared to the truth. The initial accusation that Antonelli may have intentionally allowed Norris through circulated rapidly, amplified by fan accounts, clipped videos, and emotionally charged commentary. The correction, however, arrived much later and spread far more slowly. This dynamic is common in modern sports discourse: the controversy goes viral, the truth does not. In the meantime, Antonelli was left to absorb the full force of a narrative built on an incorrect assumption. Fifth, the incident exposes the tension between data-driven racing and emotion-driven fandom. Telemetry, onboard footage, and race analysis clearly show Antonelli lost the rear and made a simple error. But emotional interpretations: he lifted, he moved aside, he played politics, drowned out the evidence. This clash mirrors a broader trend. Modern F1 is more technically transparent than ever, yet fan reactions have become more emotionally charged, driven by tribal loyalty rather than objectivity. Finally, this episode functions as a cultural warning for Formula One. If the sport continues to allow fan toxicity to escalate unchecked, incidents like this will become more frequent and more damaging.